Continue and a winter storm warning until about 2 this afternoon. High near 20. Some snowfall totals for you. Albany Park, our friends there, 16 inches. Homer Glen, 6.7. 7.5 inches at O'Hare. 13 inches of snow totaling up in Oak Lawn. Officially 10 degrees at O'Hare. Next news at 7. And Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Like that funky Comedina on this snowy Tuesday. Got about a foot more than that in Chicago and snow drifts. It's really dicey out there. I'd pay for a snowplow. I wish I could just hitch one on the top of the truck and go down the highway, like help my neighbors out. And Paul Vallis is in today for Dan Proft, the former CEO of CPS, the former, tell us about yourself. Oh, come on, give us your quick resume.
CEO of CPS for 6 years. Let me point out, we had
left with a budget surplus.
With $1 billion cash balance, fully funded pensions, 104%, and 440,000 students. Of course, the district has lost about 100,000 students since then.
And we'll never have a surplus in our time.
No, it took them about 6-7 years to spend down that. I should have spent more of that money. That's my boyfriend. You should have spent more of that money. But
and then you went to New Orleans?
When the state took over Philadelphia, I was superintendent there, and then for almost 6 years. And then after Hurricane Katrina, Governor Blanco and Senior Senator Landrieu invited me to run the Recovery School District. So I was able to be there. And I saw firsthand what happens when kids are out of school for more than a year, because I actually came a year after Katrina because they just couldn't get schools open.
And what were the kids doing? There was no e-learning back then.
Yeah, there was no e-learning, but the absence, and again, that's a district that's about 85% poverty, and these kids. I mean, some of them didn't come back 1 year behind; they came back 3 and 4 years behind. Particularly the older high school kids. You cannot underestimate the damage that's done to these high school kids, particularly high school kids from poor working families in cities like Chicago. I mean, the adverse consequences are immediate. You don't have to wait long term for the consequences; they are immediate. So this whole idea of keeping high schools closed, and the union's going to force the district to keep the schools closed. It's criminal.
Right.
It's absolutely criminal.
Well, you have an accomplished career. Also, who's had an accomplished career is Ira Rosen, award-winning producer of 60 Minutes, former senior producer of Primetime Live, and 2020 he has a new book out, Ticking Clock, Behind the Scenes at 60 Minutes. Good morning, Mr. Rosen. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so you began your career at 60 Minutes at the young age of 26, and you were there for 40 years, and I'm sure you have seen some historical and groundbreaking stories that most journalists would never experience. What exactly does your book, does it focus on every single one, and is there one story that you covered in particular that stands out from the others?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to do a story with Bill Whitaker and the Washington Post. It was a joint investigation on the opiate epidemic, and we took a look at who caused the epidemic and how it spread throughout the country. And we focused on basically how Congress dropped the ball on enforcement efforts against the DEA. And there was one congressman in particular, Congressman Marino of Pennsylvania, who kind of blocked all of passage of any legislation that could have changed things. Well, in our story, we do the story, and it turned out Marino was named to be Donald Trump's new drug czar. Well, the day after the story aired, President Trump then said, he's going to start rethinking about this. And 2 days later, Marino's name was withdrawn from the consideration of drug czar. So it was a story that both told a story about the opiate epidemic that's ravaged America, but also ended in almost immediate results. That story would later win a Peabody and a DuPont and an Emmy.
Wow. And now, because 60 Minutes, Primetime Live, which I don't think is on anymore, but 2020 is, people, are they biased? Are they generally biased organizations?
No. The organizations themselves are not biased. That doesn't mean reporters don't have their own points of view. But a good reporter knows what that point of view is and bends over backwards to protect and to make sure that their story is going to be fair. It gives the person, if you're a leaning Democrat, you give this is what my training was, to give the other side more of a benefit of the doubt as a result.
Okay, because I worked on at various television stations for 21 years, and I always felt that they were, they leaned one way, and I'd always say, well, we need to get the Republican response to that. Oh, Amy, we don't have any Republicans that would go on camera and talk about that because we have a very weak Republican
Amy,
Party.
You were totally right.
Yeah,
Amy, you were totally right. I mean, you need to make as much effort as getting the people who blow the whistle as the people who are on the other side of it, which is why I found myself, I was in many ways taken in by a lot of the Republican people because they knew that I was being fair to them, that maybe some of my colleagues they felt were a little bit too Democratic leaning or too liberal leaning. Some of my closest friends at the time was Senator Coburn, for example, of Oklahoma, who was a Republican conservative. He and I often had spirited conversations, which were terrific, and I learned from him, and he learned from him. And literally on his deathbed, he sent me a very kind note about our friendship.
Oh.
So you really need to, as a reporter, you need to put any bias at the door, check it at the door, and try to do a fair job. That's all you could ask for. One of the things I keep telling friends of mine is, President Donald Trump received 70 million votes. You need to understand what it is that 70 million people wanted, why they wanted to vote for him, as much as the 78 million people that voted for President Biden. So you need to understand both sides of things.
Jeffrey, were you there when they did the Jeffrey Wigand story with the tobacco?
No, I wasn't there. I was senior producer of ABC Primetime Live with Sam Donaldson and Diane Sawyer, and then 2020.
I see. For your listeners out there, it's a Michael Mann movie about the researcher who broke the scandal involving tobacco, actually spiking the cigarettes to create the addiction, the cigarette addiction.
Sell more
yeah,
tobacco.
And it's just absolutely fabulous movie. It stars Al Pacino and Russell Crowe, and I always wondered. There's always been some controversy as to the degree to which he took certain liberties in that movie, and I was just curious.
Now, you can answer,
Yeah,
Ira.
no, I was going to say, one of the things that I try to do in Ticking Clock is talk about the role of the producer.
Mm-hmm.
In that movie, Al Pacino portrayed Lowell Bergman, who was one of Mike Wallace's producers. I was one of Mike Wallace's producers.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a tendency sometimes in TV to not credit the producer's work as much as they probably should. There's this a bit of a mythology that has continued for many years that the correspondent does all the work, and that's just simply not true. It's the best relationships are collaborations.
Right. That's a very astute observation, because that movie was about Al Pacino, was about Lowell Bergman and his pushing this story and his defying, the corporate executives who. Big Tobacco was actually one of the investors in the news, the media conglomerate that obviously owned and produced 60 Minutes. So it's a fascinating story. So you're so right about that.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Rosen, you also write in your book about the real story of Trump's visit with the Pope, and can you give us a little sneak peek what happened there?
Oh, my God. Yeah. I got to know Steve Bannon, who was Trump's senior advisor. He was one of the people who at the very beginning was in Trump's kitchen cabinet that advised him to run for president. And Steve told me the story that when they went to see the Pope, Trump said, "Why is the Pope giving me this book on environment?" And then he was upset that when in the pictures the Pope wasn't smiling.
Right, but he doesn't smile with anyone.
He doesn't smile with anybody.
I guess not. Yeah, he hadn't been briefed properly, and then there was a bit of a tussle over who would stand next to the Pope. Certainly, the president was going to stand on one side of the Pope, but his wife Melania wanted to stand on the other side of the Pope. But Ivanka got that side and got that position, and that's when she shouted out, "I'm a Catholic," inferring basically that Ivanka, who converted
Jewish,
to Judaism, should not be given that coveted spot.
Well, speaking of Melania, I didn't know about this post-nuptial deal that she made with him after the 2016 election.
Oh yeah. But, of all places, I discovered that in Rebecca Mercer's living room. I was there for an event, and I was talking to Melania's attorney, and he kind of proudly said that he was able to get her 4 more years added to her deal with people. It was almost like a sports player contract negotiation. Because I had never heard the term before, post-nup.
Yeah.
I knew certainly what a prenup was, but a post-nup apparently is after you have a prenup, it's an addendum that's added that gives you an additional few years, I guess.
That's true love, folks.
Yeah, that's right. That's real love.
No, but I love Melania. Melania is one of my favorite people.
My question is, who did the Gambinos and
Hey, you guys say the
Bonanno
Gambinos.
crime family say assassinated President Kennedy?
Oh, so I had done a story on Joe Bonanno, who ran the Bonanno crime family, and this is in Tucson in the 1980s. And after Mike Wallace left the scene, we sent him to the airport. Joe and I are sitting in the back talking about various things, having a cognac. And I asked him what happened in the Kennedy assassination. And he said when he heard the news, he called up Santos Trafficante, who was head of organized crime in Florida, and said, "What's going on this thing?" And he said, "Listen, Southern Florida and New Orleans will take the heat for it. New York is out of it. New York doesn't have to worry about it." So Bonanno he said, "What the hell is going on here?" So he sent one of his top people down to talk to Trafficante about it. And they basically told him, listen, we were trying to take care of Kennedy in Miami with some Cuban exiles, and it didn't work out in Miami. So we took care of them in Dallas. Apparently they brought in, according to the story that he told, the Corsican hit team that themselves were later removed. So anyway, that's the story with Bonanno. And he never asked again. These guys, they ask one time and they don't really ask a second.
and of course, you had no follow-up questions. You knew better, right?
Yeah, I know exactly. And then years later, I did a profile of John Gotti Jr., who ran the Gambino family after his father, Gotti Sr., went to jail. And Gotti was sort of actually ran the Gambino family for a longer period of time than his father did. And John told me that in the social clubs, where a lot of the action is done and a lot of stories are told, Angelo Della Croce, who was the consigliere for Carlos Gambino, told the story roughly along the same lines, that it was a bunch of Corsicans who came over and did the job. Wow. So it's kind of, it's the first time I think that two mafia bosses talked a little bit about what happened then. Now, having said what I just said, there's a lot of BS that goes on in social clubs.
Of course.
And people take credit for things that they really didn't do.
Right.
There's one informant out there now who every week that goes by, he's credit for another murder. I think he's up to 16 now. Uh-huh. When he testified, he was only at 4. So, these guys tend to embellish. And also there's legend, when they get together in the social club, they're storytellers.
Yeah.
And, one story they told me was that Joe Bonanno told him. I said, I'm a Jewish kid from New York, and I kind of admired growing up Sandy Koufax, and I also looked up to in some weird way Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky was the financier for the mafia at the time in the 1950s, and I said, what was the genius of Lansky? And he looked at me like I'm a total idiot, and he said, well, he had the picture. I said, the picture? Yeah, he had a picture of FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover and his number one aide, Clyde Tolson, having sex together. And they used that picture, according to Bonanno, as a blackmail chip.
That would do it.
That would do it in those days.
Wow.
Right, and exactly. And as a blackmail chip, not to investigate mafia. He believed it. Joe 100% believed it. Now, the story of the picture, in fact, has come out before, a little bit of it, in drips and drabs out there. So, I think there might be some believability in it because, partly because the FBI for many, many years denied there was ever organized crime ever existed.
Right. Yeah. All right, Ira Rosen, the book is Ticking Clock, Behind the Scenes at 60 Minutes. We could talk to you for hours, but we're up against the clock here. And thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with the book.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You're awesome. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Lou Dobbs. Luxury car Jaguar will be all electric by 2025. Americans are spending more time with online dating services. Those stories next. Lou Dobbs here. Looking for predictable monthly cash flow? Is the potential of 10% annualized immediate monthly payout good for starters? How about bonuses targeted to 21%? If you want the safety and security of a real estate investment, but without the hassles of being a landlord, you've probably heard of NRIA. NRIA is an industry-leading real estate development firm in its 15th year, developing strategically located, low-risk, high-demand neighborhoods based on supply-demand imbalance. They are a great fit for investors who want to seek the safety of cash flow and diversification into carefully chosen real estate. Learn more about the NRIA Real Estate Development Fund at nria.net or call 201-210-2727. That's 201-210-2727.
An offer of securities is only made by the NRIA Private Placement Memorandum. Read it first. Past performance does not guarantee future results. NRIA is a real estate development firm. Learn more at nria.net.
Wall Street back to work today following the extended President's Day holiday weekend. The China virus has caused airlines to furlough pilots and restaurants to close. But the pandemic has been great for one business: online dating. 8 of the largest dating apps in America each saw over 12% growth last quarter, the biggest increases in more than 2 years. One industry